Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of eHeroes. Today's episode is episode 259, and it's going to be all about no excuses. And to talk about all the great stuff, I'm going to bring in, I think, as a phenomenal person. His name's Christoper Rausch, and he helps entrepreneurs create unstoppable, or I can't say create, but gives them unstoppable kick-ass confidence to be better entrepreneurs. So welcome, Christopher, and thanks for being here.
Hey, brother, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, it's funny because I went on to your one of your videos, and within 2 seconds it was like, F this. I'm like, yeah, I gotta have him on the show.
I warned you.
But it's funny because I think that off air we talked about, and you briefly said that you were homeless for a while.
Oh yeah.
And I've known a lot of, and in fact, I've interviewed a person years ago when I first started this podcast, and he was homeless, lived in Vegas for a while, and then when I met him, he was on the streets in Hollywood, right at the Chinese theater, doing magic. He's like, I was making more money being homeless than I was living in a house with friends. And I thought, really? You know, but here's the thing, it has nothing to do with your stability, in your being in a house or living on a street. It had to do with his confidence.
Yeah.
And he would get up every day with his magic, and he would go out there and perform, and he didn't care if people gave him a dollar, 10 cents, $50, whatever it was. He just wanted to entertain. And the more that he went out there and just entertained people, his income rose. And and and, and the funny thing is that he didn't even keep a lot of it. He gave it to a lot of the other homeless people. And to
Wow.
me, that was just phenomenal.
Giving from the heart. I mean, when you're operating in flow, it's amazing what it is that you can attract when you're allowing those opportunities to flow through you, as opposed to judging them and critiquing them and locking them inside and wanting to be perfect and wanting to be seen, all that stuff. He was just operating from his heart and from his flow, and that's exactly what I do. I mean, when I started off speaking and coaching, I was a suit and tie speaker, and I was like trying to be what everybody else wanted me to be, pretending to be like, to fit in. And then one day I just decided, I'm like, this is who I am. I'm a rocker. I'm a biker. I'm a smartass. I'm just going to be me. And if I suck at this, at least I'm going to suck at it being me. And I had quite a few people that were giving me advice to say, no, 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 you should fit in like Tony Robbins and Les Brown and Mark Victor Hansen and all that other stuff. And I'm like, but that's them. And this is me. And ever
Yeah.
since I've been me, I've attracted amazing clients, amazing opportunities. And I just flow. I just flow from my heart. I give, I serve. And it's amazing the abundance that I attract in my life.
Yeah. And when I started just allowing my sarcasm to shine, I wrote a lot of brilliant books and people loved them. But until I came out with the whole Rob versus series of books where I just take on scammers and lousy customer service and share my sarcastic stories, people were like, wow, this is awesome. you know and they embrace that sarcasm, they embrace that my personality, and they're like, wow, you're just so real and refreshing. And I'm like, well, why can't everybody just be real and refreshing? Why does it have to just be a few people that lead the way? Everybody can be real and refreshing.
That's what I teach all the time. People sit there and look at me like, Chris, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, I'm just honestly being me. And that's all I'm doing. If I say something a smart ass, if I say something, controversial, whatever it might be, I'm
Hmm.
just being me. And if you dig it, great. If not, go find somebody that you do dig. Don't
Yeah.
spend time on me like, oh, that guy swears and da, 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 or whatever. It's like, just be you and flow from you, because at the end of the day, that's why we're here, is to have this unique experience of being us. And that's what I teach so many people to do, is like, what would life feel like if you just got up tomorrow and said what you needed to say and did what you needed to do,
Hmm.
and we're happy about it?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, Chris, that would be amazing. I'm like, then just go do it. Let it
Yeah.
go.
One of the things that drives me nuts is that when people approach me and they say, Rob, I know that you do great marketing. I want you to help us or help me be the next Tony Robbins. And I'm like, yeah, okay, no. And they're like,
No.
what, why? I said, I will help you be the next you, because
Yeah.
that is who you are. I said, but I'm not going to help you be someone that's already out there being who they are. It's counterproductive. And, Nobody's going to care about you because
Yep.
Tony Robbins has already mastered who he is, and they're like, well, it's I don't know who I am, and I think that's the problem with 90% of entrepreneurs out there is they don't know who they are. They haven't embraced themselves.
It's true. It's true. I mean, that's part of the identity process that I talk about in my coaching is the fact of, the conditioning process that happens for us as kids from 0 to 5 really shapes our beliefs and our attitudes and our actions and our feelings.
Mhm.
So if we were told, oh, you're a piece of shit or you're stupid or you're not worthy or you weren't loved or like for me, I was beaten and bullied at home. I was beaten and bullied on my street. I was beaten and bullied at school. I did poor in school. I had zero self-confidence, Rob. So for me to be the person that I am today, I had to change a lot of my beliefs about that upbringing and about those first 5 years of my life, and then finally accept and embrace this is who I am.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people out there who may disagree with me or may not like me, but at the same time, once you flow from that congruent spot and you find your values and your morals and your ethics are aligned and you have a vision for who it is that you want to be remembered for, it's pretty amazing what a kick ass life you can have.
Yeah, but just
Is it
imagine
easy? No, it's not
no,
easy, but it's worth it.
but just imagine that you didn't have that childhood. Would you be who you are now? No.
No, no, I'm grateful for it. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for every single part of it.
And I think that there's too many people that hold on to the past. They blame the past, and then they can't get past the future to be who they are.
Mhm.
They don't understand. They were given a certain power. Okay, maybe you don't understand it. Maybe you're trying to repress it, but everything that happened to you in the past makes you a stronger person for someone else. And it becomes a teachable moment that you could embrace to leave a legacy later on in life. I mean, I'm still using skills I developed back in high school. I mean,
Mhm.
that's where I got my love for writing and my love for computers. And we're talking over 35 years ago.
Oh, I know. We're the same
And
age.
now I'm utilizing those computer skills. I mean, granted, they've updated a little bit over the last 3 decades, but I'm building websites. I'm helping people with their books, you know, and so and I understand there's a lot people do suffer a lot of trauma,
Mhm. Sure.
um, and I'm not knocking some of that. However, we can't keep blaming what happened in the past. We just got to move on and make it better.
So true.
Yeah, and I know people are like, "Well, Rob, that's just woo woo," and it only happens to special people. And look,
Nope. You
if
are
I can
special.
change my future, if Christopher can change who he is, anybody can do it.
Yeah. Just gotta be willing to sacrifice. You gotta be willing to do the hard work. You have to be willing to let go of the things that we've been tolerating all our entire life. The
Hmm.
tolerating the bullshit excuses that we tell ourselves. Oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I found through the COVID pandemic, I gifted a bunch of people coaching sessions, just my way of giving back as people were struggling with being locked down and losing their job and all sorts of having to reframe a lot of things.
Hmm.
And I heard this little whisper as I was having these conversations with people, and it said, ask them if they love themselves. And I thought it was like, and I've learned to listen to my whisper. And I was like, that's kind of a stupid question. But I started telling people, I'm like, okay, hey, I'm gonna ask you a question. It's a yes or no question. I really don't want you to think a lot about it, but do you love yourself? Yes or no? And 75% of about 200 people went, well, yeah, I think so. I kind of, well, sort of, well, I don't know. And I'm like, but yet you have the expectation that you're going to attract them, the great job, the great relationship. Like, talk to me about your self care. Do you hydrate? Do you have good nutrition? Do you get exercise? Do you get vitamin D? How much water do you drink a day? That was a simple question. Most
Hmm.
people don't even drink enough water every single day, but yet they're 70 or 80% water. And I'm like, so you're dehydrated, so you feel like shit. So you go to your short term gratification to run away from your problems, and you get up and you hope, wish, and pray that someday
Hmm.
things will change. But then you get to the point in your life where you go, wow, I really regret all the chances I didn't take. There's a great book out there. I'm sure you're familiar with it, The Five Regrets of the Dying,
Hmm.
where it was written by a hospice nurse. And the number one regret of the dying of these people dying with this person said, I wish I lived the life I thought I was supposed to live, where I should have lived the life that I wanted to live.
Right.
And that's my whole purpose and intention when I coach people is like to shift that vision. And I think about it in terms of like, if you knew you were going to die tomorrow, how would you want to be remembered? And what things would you want people to say about you? And then every day, wake up and set the intention to be that person that day. and
Mhm.
do the best you could possibly do to live that intention. If God forbid it's your last day, at least you know you went out there being congruent and being a part of the legacy that you wanted to leave as opposed to being an afterthought.
Yeah. One of the things I stopped doing is I stopped having regrets, because I can't change what I did in the past, and I'm probably gonna make screw ups in the future, but people get hung up on all those things, and then it doesn't really benefit them.
Mm,
So I try not to dwell on any of the things I've done. If I move
good.
forward. If I need to fix something, I fix it. But you know, regret is just another thing of worry, and I just can't. To me, it doesn't benefit me.
Mm,
You
no, it's a
know,
waste of time.
and yeah, there's so many people I've had over the past 20 some years. I've had people that, well, even partners, in certain ventures, and one of them back started in 1997, and the last time I spoke to him was a few years ago, and then 20 years had passed, and he's still holding a grudge.
Oh yeah,
And I'm like,
tight as tight can
dude,
be, man.
why?
Serving them.
Yeah, and so my income has grown, you know, 10, 20 times since then, and his has basically stayed the same because he's holding that grudge for 20 years.
Yeah.
And hatred never does anything for you.
No, it's a badge of honor. Some people live in that victim mindset. I reunited with my sister years ago. I hadn't seen her since I was 9 years old, and she went and lived with her dad and had a normal life and everything. I stayed with my mom, who had various psychological disorders. I was homeless for 4 years as a teenager. I dropped out of school in the seventh grade. And my sister, when we reunited, she goes, "How did you not turn out like mom?" And I said, "Because I chose not to."
Yeah.
And then I asked her the question. I said, "How did you turn out exactly like her when you hated her and you left at 16 years old?" And she just exploded. She couldn't even see the fact that she was exactly like her, but she wore it like a badge of honor. Like, "Oh, I've been fired from every job because of mom, and I've lost every relationship because of mom." And I'm like, "That's crazy. I've had some amazing relationships. I'm married now. I have a kid. I've got a beautiful career. I've got all these different things." But people hang on to that victimhood like it's a prized position. Like, this is the reason why I'm screwed up. When you decide to let that go and you decide that those things happen for you and not to you,
Hmm.
I mean, it's all written in my book. It's just you and me, kid. Literally, my life story of a kid that was on the streets, all the different adversities that I'd experienced in my life, all created the man that I am today. And I'm grateful for all those experiences. I wouldn't want to relive them whatsoever. But going through that trials and tribulations, we can choose to have this perspective. And I invite people to think about this. What am I supposed to be learning from this?
Hmm.
What am I supposed to be? We're in a down situation. I had a horrible day yesterday. I had a lot of stuff happen, let's just say. And I just sat there and I stopped and I went, "Chris, what are you supposed to be learning from this?"
Hmm.
And I came up with a couple of things and I said, "Okay, these are things that I'm not going to repeat again in the future. These seems to be habits that I do, like trust people without getting things in writing. I tend to be that person like, we've got an agreement. We've known each other for 10 years." And then all of a sudden something happens. You're like, "Oh, there I go again." Well, Chris, there's something to learn. So the
Hmm.
only person you have to look at is yourself and just sit there and say, "Okay, moving forward, I'm just going to have to be tough and make sure that I get things in writing. And that way I don't have this experience again."
Yeah, yeah,
And so I had my
and
pity party and then I moved on.
yeah, and I think we as entrepreneurs we get into a cycle where we continue to do the same stupid shit over and over and over again because to us it feels safe.
Yeah,
It
certainly.
and yet it still creates too much risk, especially when it comes to pricing, when it comes to collection. And I'm like, why are you sending out an invoice, then waiting 90 days to get paid? And then the person then has the ability to contact you and say, well, you screwed up. Can you come back? So now you spend all this time making, you know, changes or corrections or making the person feel good so that you hope that eventually you're going to get paid. Why don't you just get paid up front? Now you've taken the power away from them. You do the job to your best of your ability. And you know what? The complaints actually drop because they've already paid you.
Mhm.
Yeah, but no, most of them will just continue to bill because that's the way the industry does it. I'm like, why are you doing things the way other people are doing them?
Right. Yeah, you gotta stop tolerating stuff. That's what I teach people is like, when you stop tolerating things from yourself, you stop tolerating things from others, and you stop tolerating things from inanimate objects. And I invite my people to sit there and write this stuff down. It's pretty incredible. When you eliminate a third of the things that you tolerate, like, oh, I tolerate for myself that I allow the people to take advantage of me and not pay me. Okay,
Mhm.
what would it be like if you no longer tolerated that anymore? Did you wake up today to say, wow, I'm gonna be mediocre and I'm gonna let people take advantage of me? By golly. No, I didn't. Okay, well then stop that shit.
Yeah.
Stop doing it, grow a backbone, start telling people up front, okay, here's the situation. Here's what's going to be. If you don't want to work with me, that's fine. Go find somebody else. But this is where I stand in my integrity. And this is where I stand in my value and my worth. And it's
Mhm.
pretty crazy that people go, wow, this person's really committed to who they are. That's the way I am. I mean, I'm tough, but I'm tough with a ton of love. And
Yeah.
people get that. And we were talking about that know, like, and trust thing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you got to know, like, and trust yourself.
And just because I'm sarcastic doesn't mean you can't trust me because a lot of my clients have been with me for years and they know that I have their back. It's
Yeah.
just, sarcasm is who I am. And, if you appreciate sarcasm, we're going to get along. You
I
don't
know. I can't wait
appreciate
to read your books.
sarcasm.
I got your books. I got your
Now,
books sitting right over there.
the people that don't like sarcasm usually don't hire me because they get triggered too much. But I'm admiring your background, and for all those listening on audio, Christopher's got two guitars hanging in the back. He's got some pictures on the bottom, and one of them is his hero.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that because that was the first thing that jumped out when you first popped on screen was the picture of the crow. And
Yeah.
and I mean it's a great movie, but I'm sure it has a lot of significance to you.
It does. It does so much, Rob, and thank you for that. I mean, that's I like the way the conversation's going. Yeah, I watched the movie way back in the day with Brandon Lee, of course, as the starring role as the Crow, and in that movie, I'm not a big violence person, but in the movie, the justified violence coming back, he and his wife were murdered, and then he
Mhm,
comes back and he avenges that by killing the people that killed him, and it's this beautiful love story. But the big thing that really got me, Rob, was on the VHS. My wife at the time got me the bonus VHS, and it had like footage scenes and whatnot. And there
mhm,
was an interview with Brandon while he was filming the movie. And I still get chills to this day. I swear to God. And he's talking about it. Goes, how many more sunrises are we going to see? How many more sunsets? How many more experiences are we going to have? You're always waiting for tomorrow. We're always planning to be happier tomorrow. Why can't we just be happy today? And it was posthumously. I mean, while I was watching that, he was already dead. And for
mhm.
me to see that really impacted me, and I just became a super fan. It was just like the challenge and the sayings, so many different sayings in that movie. Like I told you, I've got the tattoo that says it can't rain all the time.
Mhm.
And there's so many different things. Victims, aren't we all?
Yeah.
There's story about and the rise of what he was doing and where he was going, and unfortunately being fatally shot on the set was tragic. But yeah, it's just a reminder for me. Like, enjoy those sunrises, enjoy those sunsets. Don't let people necessarily take advantage. You be tough, but live your life in such a way that when you die, people are going to remember you as being a beautiful person.
Yeah.
And that's
One
what
of
that's what people know about Brandon.
one of the quotes that my wife quotes off that movie a lot is the one that goes, "Mother is the name for God on the lips and hearts of all children."
Yep,
And
that's awesome.
she can't remember any of the other quotes, but that's the one that she remembers. And so all of our kids know that one by heart, and it's a very good movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I highly recommend it to people. It's, and actually they remade it. Apparently it's in post-production now. It'll be interesting to see how they capture that. That was one of the movies I was vehemently like, do not recreate this. You cannot recreate this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we will see what they do. I followed the television show afterwards. I saw the other movies afterwards. Nothing held a candle to that, obviously. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do with the storyline and the character evolution.
Yeah, one of my favorite movies is Highlander with Christopher Lambert, and
Yeah.
and
Oh,
and
cool.
and and now I'm told that it's being remade by or starring the guy from Superman, Witcher,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Henry Cavill,
Henry Cavill. Yeah, my wife's
and I'm thinking
crush.
to myself, no, it's not going to be as good. But that's Hollywood right now. They don't know what else to do. They're just
No, they
remaking
can't. They
old
can't come up
stuff.
with an original idea to save their life. They can't come up with a comedy to save their life. For good lord.
So
Yeah.
now, speaking of comedy, I'm hoping that my I was approached and we wrote the pilot for the Rob versus books to become a TV show. So we'll see where that
Wow.
goes. But with the
Congratulations.
with the writers' strike and all, um, It could, it couldn't. I don't know. It's just up in the air,
Mhm.
and that's the thing about Hollywood. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, we get excited about certain things, and we put a lot of hope into that future that may not happen. So what I try to do is I backpedal a little bit. I'm like, okay, if it happens, it happens. But I got other stuff to do. I'm going to still write books. I'm going to still help my customers. I'm going to go forward until that day when I get that call and say, hey, Rob, this is going forward. Then we'll see what happens. But I think people get too caught up in the excitement. Um, and I'm going to use an example. Like most entrepreneurs right now are doing is they'll get a contract and they'll say, I have $10,000 worth of work coming in. Did you get paid? Well, no, not yet. Then you don't have shit.
I love you, Rob. You're awesome.
Y- y-
Straight up.
stop saying to people that you have this work, and then you go out and you spend money you don't have on stuff you don't need, and then you don't get paid. And now what? You're stuck. You can't even afford to pay back the stuff. I don't know. It's just a vicious cycle. Don't
Mhm.
spend until you have the money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's the way I look at it.
so the how I mean, so you were homeless. You had all these problems, but what really was the motivation for you to become this confidence coach, really, to people out there? I mean, did someone say, "Hey, Christopher, I really think you'd be good at this," or I mean, how'd the origin story start?
Well, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, literally, I got to a point after 2 failed suicide attempts before I was 17 years old. I had a situation where I had a gun put to my head because the guy thought I was racist because I went and buy a carton of cigarettes from him that were stolen, and I went to reach in my back pocket to prove to him that I smoked cool menthol cigarettes, which is the same thing most of my black friends smoked. I was a white guy with long hair, and everybody thought I smoked Marlboro Reds. He's like, "Hey, man, I got a carton of Reds for you for $5." I'm like, "Oh, it's cool, dude." I said, "I don't smoke that." And he's like, "Oh, what is it because I'm black?" And I'm like, "Dude, I grew up in Inglewood in an all black neighborhood. I don't what color your skin is. I care what color the pack of cigarettes are." And I went to reach in there, I had a gun put to my head, and I told the guy to pull the truck. I told him to pull the trigger. I was done. I was 17 years old. I was doing drugs and alcohol. My life was miserable, and I just thought there was going to be no way out.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, somebody came out and intervened, said, "No, no, him and his moms are cool. Him and his moms are cool." And so I got to a point, honestly, Rob, where I had to think about things. I'm like, I'm going to get out of this situation in one of three ways. I'm going to get out of it in a pine box because I'm doing stupid things with stupid people. I'm going to get out of it in a patrol car. I'm going to go to jail, which fortunately I've never been to jail. Or I'm going to have to take responsibility for my life and leave my mother in this situation because she is not going to change. She has not demonstrated that she has the capacity to change her situation. And if I continue to be codependent and help her in these situations, I'm going to be 35 years old still taking care of my mother.
Hmm.
And so God Source Universe has a funny way of like providing opportunities and doors. So I was living in this trashy, sleazy motel. And long story short, got an opportunity to leave the motel and move into an apartment with a couple of guys and got around the right people. And one of my mentors said, "Hey, why don't you think about going back to school and getting your GED?" And so, long story short, I went back and got my GED in about 6 months. And then he says, "What about college?" And I was like, "What are you crazy, dude? I'm stupid. Like, there's no way. I did horrible in school. In seventh grade, I almost got kicked out. I mean, you want me to go to college? My thought was college. That's smart people. Those are people who haven't dug through dumpsters for food and stuff like that." But 12 years later, I walked out of school with my master's degree. And
Nice.
as a result of that, when I was in corporate where I was very successful, people would come into my office and they would say, "Hey, Chris, I got a work question." And then they would leave an hour later telling me their life story. Like, "Oh my God, Chris, I feel like I could tell you anything." And they would tell me all sorts of stuff. And I would just sit there and ask them these questions. I didn't know what a life coach was. I just knew that I had the capacity to help people pretty quickly shift their perspective about themselves. And like, "Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?" I didn't think about that. I'm like, "Well, here's something to do." Like, and then people would go do it and they would come back and like, "Oh my God, you changed my life."
Hmm.
And so I was out with my buddies one night and then they were talking about our dreams. And I said, one of my dreams is to go back to the school I dropped out of and go speak to the seventh and eighth grade kids and tell them, like, "Oh my God, this is the journey Christoper Rausch has been on since he got kicked, since I left the seventh grade." Funny enough, again, God, source, universe, however, what you believe in. My buddy goes, "What school did you go to?" And I said, "I went to Brookhurst Junior High here in Southern California." And he just looks at me and goes, "No way." And I'm like, "You know it?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "My wife's a PE teacher there." She goes, she's really good friends with the principal. Long story short, I got invited to go speak to the 7th and 8th grade class. It was one of my first big speaking events. And kid after kid after kid came up to me afterwards, like, oh, thank you for telling me your story. I'm homeless. I'm living with my grandmother. I'm in foster care. And I was like, wow, I can use my voice. I can use all these terrible, shitty experiences in my life that were horrible to make everybody's life better, and to use myself as an example, and to I was hooked, and that's really what changed everything. It's just I didn't even charge for my coaching originally. I call it pay it forward coaching based on the movie Pay It Forward with Haley Joel Osment. I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm going to work with you for 6 weeks. You're going to go do 3 nice things for complete strangers. Come back and tell me about it, and together we're going to help you get better, and then we're going to make the world a better place. And I've just been doing that. I've been a life coach, a mindset coach for over 20 years, been a speaker for over 20 years, author. I do my own podcast as well called Raw and Unscripted, which you're going to be on. And I love every single minute of it, every single day in every single way. Being able to inspire people to think about their past, present, and their future differently, and to
Mhm.
make a contribution to the world of what their true gift is.
Yeah.
Dude, I could do that all day long in my sleep.
Yeah. And that was for me, that was the turning point. The I can write all these great books, but sarcasm is that one thing I'm really good at. And to me, that's the one thing that kind of bridges that gap between people.
Yeah.
And if I can make them laugh, and then while they're laughing, I'll say, "Oh, by the way, I can help you with your website or your SEO, your publishing, or whatever it is that you need." Now it's like, "Oh yeah, Rob," and they're still laughing at something they read in one of my books. You know, to me, I don't want to sell you anything. You
Right.
have to come to me with you know a reason, and that's usually because you read something of mine. You heard something about me. You know, I don't run ads anymore. I just post to social, and I prefer that you come to me from a referral that's already been my because it's just so much easier. You
Yeah.
already
I
know who
agree.
I am, and one of the first things I say to people is when they call, "Hey, have you read any of my books?" No. Well, can I send you some? Well, I don't read. Okay, well then you're not a very good customer. But if you take the time to read a couple of my books, you'll know who I am. You'll know what I stand for. You'll know a lot about me, and then it makes it a lot easier for when we're working together. I can call them an asshole for doing stupid shit, and then they appreciate it.
Right.
But if you don't know
I
who
agree.
I am, and I call you an asshole, you're gonna go, "You're an arrogant dick," and they're gonna hang up on me. So you have to have that friendship first, and every single one of my clients knows that I treat them as a friend first and a client second.
For me, same here.
And it's just the way I do things. And if they have personal problem, if they have a kid problem, whatever it is, we'll talk it out. If they need help, I will help them. And so I'm always there first and foremost as their friend.
Mhm. I mean, it's about that connection, that relationship, and you're doing it from your heart. And that's the same thing with me. It's like I just give from my heart, and I know that the expectation is maybe they're not going to be a client right now, but potentially down the road, they're either going to refer me to somebody, but they're always going to remember that conversation. I've given out lots of complimentary coaching sessions, and for me, that feels so good because you're right. When you're authentically caring about that person, and
Yeah.
one of the greatest lessons I've learned about relationships is that seek first to understand, then to be understood. Where I saw my mom always had to be right, and defend herself, and make everybody else feel wrong because of her own ego and her lack of self-worth. For me, it's like, how can I understand this person a little bit better so that they perhaps understand themselves even a little bit better, and build that connection and build that reward system. I mean, all my former clients have become family members. I mean, it's incredible the relationship that you can build, and to feel good about that, because at the end of the day, no matter if we're black, white, short, straight, gay, Republican, Democrat, whatever label you want to put on it, we're humanity. And when you split us down the middle, we're all the same.
Yeah.
And when we're more genuine with ourselves and more transparent with ourselves and more vulnerable with our customers and our clients and our family, the connection, the trust, the love that can be created can get people through some pretty dark times.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you're coming from a state that is a little messed up, but not not to say that all people are. It's just sometimes California gets a bad rap.
Yeah. I've
and
been here all
and
my life. I
and
love it.
I'm in Pennsylvania, so we're the same way. But you know, for me, it's always been about friendship first, and I know that a lot of people say, well, Rob, as a business owner, you need to distance yourself from people. Why? It's my business.
Mhm.
This is and I remember back, I guess it was 1993. I worked for a company, and I was one of their top salespeople. And every month I'd be winning contests. And the boss says to me, he goes, you talk too much to clients. I said, yeah, but who's winning all these sales awards? He goes, I don't. And that was the first time he cursed at me. He goes, I don't effing care. Stop talking to people. You're wasting too much time. So I replied to him, who is winning all the awards?
Mhm. Yeah, help me process this for a second. Yeah,
And I'm
really?
like, when I
That was
communicate with
jealousy. That
people,
was jealousy on his part.
and that was, and then he says, "Well, I'm going to suspend you for 2 weeks." I said, "Don't bother. I'm out of here. I quit." And my wife goes, "What did you just do?" I said, "He goes, I just sealed my fortune." and
I just
and
steal my
that's
fortune, yeah.
and so I that's when I started my own business, and that was for me that was ego because
Yep.
although I was right, I was also wrong because for 3 years I struggled to create this carpet cleaning business, and I prevented my family from having, nicer things. I was borrowing money from credit cards, and it was basically didn't have, you know, it was boiling in the summer. We didn't have central air because I couldn't afford it.
Mhm.
But, it also made me struggle, and it also made me realize I have to learn marketing. And so, yeah, I let my ego get in the way, but I corrected it,
Yeah.
and I grew the business, and I made it better. And so, yeah, sometimes we can do things as entrepreneurs that we think at the time are great,
Mhm.
but they're not. And however, if you can course correct quickly, then you can make them better.
That's the point right there, Rob, is to be able to course correct, to sit there and ask ourselves, what is it that I'm doing that's no longer working? What part of insanity do I need to change? Dr. Wayne Dyer, I'm all about quotes.
Hmm.
Dr. Wayne Dyer said, if you continue to do what you've always done, you will continue to get what you've always got.
Hmm.
Or the other one I love, he says, is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
And it's so true. It's like if you're in the same spin cycle, like, wow, every relationship I have winds up like this.
Hmm.
Question to self, what is it that I'm doing that is attracting these people? Oh, that's right. I haven't resolved my issues with my father. So I keep trying to find male influences in my life that I think I can change and get to love me and get that validation I never got from my dad.
Hmm.
Or reverse it with the mom thing, or like, what is it that I keep doing? What is it about myself that I can change? What books can I read? What therapy can I go to? I've gone to therapy, I've read books, I've been on medications, I have studied successful people. I have continued always, always to fit the, and to figure out what's next and how I can continue to pivot and evolve who I am. Even to the point now in spirituality, I'm reading Marcus Aurelius meditations. I'm like constantly growing myself. And people are like, Chris, you seem to be, this dynamic person. I'm like, well, we're all fluid. Like
Hmm.
always be learning, always be excited about
Yeah.
who do I get to be tomorrow, and
Yeah.
then that'll attract the right people in your life.
And I like that you said fluid because the fact is, as entrepreneurs, we don't have to be stuck in the business that we created. We can evolve. We can do other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm 54 years old. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So I do a lot of things. Build websites, write books, do this, do that. And people are like, well, Rob, you should really offer one or two things. Dude, I'm
Mm.
ADD. I need to have all kinds of stuff in my life.
Same here.
Yeah. So
ADD on ADHD on crack. That's what I call it.
so being fluid as an entrepreneur allows us to see opportunities that other people don't see.
Mhm.
We say yes often, and although sometimes we should be saying no often, but
Mhm.
I think people like you and I are generally um, trustworthy to others,
Yeah.
or
Oh, yeah.
we do trust others, or we want the situation to be workable in some way that it benefits everybody. And sometimes it doesn't
100%.
work that way, but we do give it our all. And for us, it's not always about money.
Mhm.
It's
True.
it's about how can we make the situation for someone else better. Um, what legacy can we teach someone? But I think too many people put dollar signs on entrepreneurs when it's really not about dollar signs.
Mhm. The dollar
And
signs will happen. When you're being congruent with yourself and you get to wake up and be excited every day about what it is that you get to do and serve, then that attracts. That law of attraction is real. Like when
mhm,
you love what you do and you're excited about doing it. When I jump on a coaching call with somebody who's never had a coaching opportunity and I know I get this opportunity that they're going to shift their mind. I know they're going to shift their mind and I get to see that wake up. That's exciting. And then
mhm,
that's exciting for them. It's like get back to being curious and adventurous like we were when we were little kids. Again, talking about that conditioning process.
mhm,
Oh, get your head out of the clouds and stop daydreaming. You have to be realistic and all. No, get up and fucking play.
mhm,
Like play, color. I have a coloring book. It's a swearing coloring book, but a coloring book. I have video games. Have fun. Like when we're
yeah,
kids, we figure it out. That's the whole thing about people is like they're afraid to take that first step. It's like
mhm,
for me, literally, I have these wristbands. One of them says believe. It says believe because you got to believe that every single day there's an opportunity for you. Obviously, no excuses. But
mhm,
when I think about my life, I've just continued to take imperfect action after imperfect action every single day, knowing that I'm going to learn. And it may not be perfect for the first year. It may not be perfect for the first 3 years, but I
mhm,
know in the fourth year,
mhm.
and God, if I'm willing, I'm going to still continue to have this opportunity to keep
Well,
going. I'm going to
that's
learn. I'm going to learn, and I'm going to continue to grow. But so many people get stuck in that perfect. Oh, it's got to be this. It's got to be
yeah.
that. And then I see people get to the end of their journey like, wow, the last 20 years, I could have been taking so many imperfect decisions and actions and created a life for myself that I'd be proud of. Instead, now I'm just going to live with my regrets. And for me, that's tragedy. That's just
Well,
that's
I have people contacting me all the time, and they'll say, "Hey, Rob, there's errors in your book." Yeah, and I'll say, "Did you read it?" Well, yeah, but there's errors. Look, I'm not a big believer in making everything perfect. I
yeah.
get the stuff out there, and if I need to go back later in time to fix it, I will. But I want everybody to understand, we all have these phones. They're not perfect.
Mhm.
This is the iPhone 12. It's now on the 14. That means there's 14 iterations of a device that's never been perfect.
Yeah.
And the fact is that every other day you're getting updates to apps, to programs. They're never perfect. They keep updating them. You know, if we spent all of our life trying to make something so perfect, it's never going to get done, and you're never going to make any money on it.
Mhm.
So move forward. Yeah.
And then say thank you to that person and say, "Can you do me a favor, circle all those errors and mistakes and send them to me?" Then you update it in version 2.
Yeah, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll send the pre-draft out to people, and I'll say, "Read it, review it, and give me your thoughts." And they'll make the corrections for me and send them back. And thank you very much.
Mhm.
And then the
Yep,
book goes out.
and it does.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's people will be helpful when they want to be helpful, but unsolicited advice never works.
Mhm.
So how do people find you? Where do they go? Where do they get your swag?
Smoke signals. The easiest place for them to go is just noexcusescoach.com. Noexcusescoach.com. They can find my book there. It's gonna be itsjustyoundme.com. It's coming out here this fall. An
Nice.
amazing story. It's just you and me kid.com. But yeah, noexcusescoach.com. They can find my podcast, which is raw and unscripted that I do every week. And what's funny, you just said you're on show two. What'd you say? You said you're on show two
59.
259. I just did 225 on Tuesday night of the Raw and Unscripted show. Then I have another show called The Unfiltered Experience that I've been doing as well. So yeah, my show's there, my book is there, my course. I have a workshop coming up here on Saturday, September 9th. It's the No Excuses Confidence Workshop. I do it for 2 hours. It's $27 investment. I donate all the money to the charity that I'm on the board of directors of, which is Help Heal Humanity.
Wow.
So I do it once a year. It's my way of giving back. So we get a bunch of people in there and I donate money and we go and we put kids in school in Haiti. We feed the homeless in Hamilton, Ontario, and in Canada, and in Los Angeles. And yeah, I would just love to connect with anybody. And as a gift for anybody who's been watching this far, because we've been talking about coaching and complimentary coaching sessions. Anybody who's been watching this, the first 5 people can get a complimentary coaching session with me as my gift for being on your show, Rob, because this has been an amazing conversation. And I appreciate you. Can't wait to dig into your book. I've got it sitting over there, and then having you on my show as well.
Well, one of my Rob versus books is called Rob versus Humanity. And that came out during the pandemic when everybody was, customer service really took a dive.
Yeah,
And, it was just, it just seemed like humanity was pit against each other. And so the book came out, and, it was supposed to be the final Rob versus book. Well, that didn't happen because now there's 7 and I have enough material for 3 more. Um,
nice.
the books after a while just write themselves because I see every day I'm dealing with the scammers, the lousy customer service, the it just it's people haven't stopped complaining.
Hmm.
So, I just try to make the everything a funny situation that people can learn from. And you know, humanity will change. Humanity will get better. But
I
as a
agree.
whole, humanity has to learn. And, it's not about being triggered or being woke or being this or being that. It's not about being labeled. It's just, we all live in this great big blue world. We have to get along. But some people choose not to.
Amen. And I feel sorry for those people because at the end of the day, we are one world, we are humanity. And I believe that if you get up every single day and do one nice thing for somebody else, just how fast the world could change.
Yeah.
And I've been all over the world. I've been blessed to travel all over the world internationally. Everybody I meet from wherever we go, um, beautiful people,
Yeah.
literally beautiful people. And it's pretty amazing when you get your head out of the politics and the news and all the other stuff, and you just go out in your community and like, what can I do today to help somebody? Like,
Yeah.
what do I have? What gift do I have? What money do I? What can I do to make this world a little bit better place? And live like that. And that's what will create the future world for your grandson, my son, the future kids of the world. They deserve to inherit a beautiful place where we've learned from our mistakes and we don't continue to make more of them.
Yeah. I stopped. I know Andrew Carnegie, the great book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, but I've never
Yep.
been a big fan of How to Win Friends and Influence People because my whole philosophy in life is just helping one person at a time.
What we're talking about.
And you get that position where as long as you've helped one person today, it'll snowball. You don't know when, you don't know how, eventually it will.
It
And
does.
so, but if you have the mindset where I want to help millions of people, you're just going to get accused of being a fraud. So help
Mhm.
one person at a time.
That's what I do. And that's what you do.
That's
We
what I
share a
do.
brain
That's right.
and a heart. That's the most important part, sharing the heart.
So everybody, please go to Chris's website, noexcusescoach.com, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you so
Adios.
much, Rob. I appreciate you, brother. Appreciate
Uh,
you.
See ya.